Hello and good evening to all the lovely ladies of True and anyone else who may be visiting our Facebook Live tonight. Welcome, welcome. Tonight we're going to talk about social media and sort of its influence on our body image and the role in our health and our healthcare and how we make choices. We have a couple of guests tonight that are going to bring a couple of different perspectives to this topic. First, I want to welcome for the first time Marisa. She has a master's in psychology and she's a certified life coach. She's going to be one of our guests today. In addition, we're going to have Sam and Missy from Leverage Studios. They are part of our marketing team, and Missy owns her own marketing firm and is very intimately involved with social media. And so they're going to kind of give their perspective of social media and healthcare and share a little bit of their own journey. So welcome all the ladies guests tonight.
Hi.
Egan.
Hi, welcome everyone. I just have to say before we get started, Egan is my married name, but I'm an Irish by marriage. And so I'm wearing my green for St. Patrick's Day and excited to share the March love. And I'm just, fingers crossed, hoping for more spring.
Me too. I'm ready for it to be over.
Yeah. At least the sun's out. We can be grateful for that.
I'm going to pop out just for a minute and let you guys chat because we are having a little bit of a trouble getting live on Facebook for some reason. So I'm going to take care of that behind the scenes for a second. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay.
And so just a reminder to everyone who's watching that if you wanted to make a comment or you have a question about anything that we're talking about, to go ahead and type it into the comment section, and we will try to answer any comments or questions as we go through. So Sam, Marisa, welcome. Social media, obviously, being a woman, it's really hard to navigate a life kind of without it. It's involved in a lot of our in our reflections about things that we're purchasing. Sometimes we just stumble upon it. All of a sudden our phone just seems to be open and we're already on Instagram. And so it's one of those things that's just this major thread in our lives. As a doctor, patients come to me with numerous amounts of questions and ideas and thoughts that they have gotten from social media. Marisa, how do you see social media sort of playing out in your business as a spiritual life coach?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's such an important topic, and I'm so glad and commend you that you're doing this and having this discussion. I think the things that my clients face are very similar to what I have faced. I think regardless of your career, where you're at in your life, social media has an impact, right? And it really influences how we see ourselves. And I think that for me and for most of my clients, the positive in the negative of social media is that I think your reaction to social media can be a mirror for you in showing you maybe where you still need to do some healing or some growth work, or where you need to put some boundaries in place. So if you are feeling triggered, if my clients are saying, listen, I felt really, really triggered by this thing that I saw, or I'm feeling triggered about showing up, being present, then it's a good opportunity to really dig into what that means for you, where that's coming from, and to be able to make sure that you've got the right boundaries in place and that you are cognizant of what's going on in your mind and with your own self-image. So I think it can be a starting point for people to really unfold some of these important questions for themselves, if used in the right way. And then, how do you implement those boundaries so that you're protecting yourself from continuing to play into that trigger and continuing to feel however it is that you're feeling over and over again.
Yeah, I think that that's a great place to sort of pause for a second, because I know I talk to my patients a lot about sort of being curious to some of the emotions that they're having, right? Because we do tend to get in this cycle. We'll say, oh my gosh, like here I am, I got here. Now I feel guilty. Now I'm sad. Now I feel guilty that I'm sad. Right. And it starts a little bit of this snowball of not even knowing where you're at. And I talk to my patients a lot about even pausing and just being curious of, wow, here I am looking at these pictures of, these people on vacation, and I'm angry and I'm sad or I'm anxious. Like, how did I get here? right? And kind of just allowing our brains that space to maybe reflect a little bit before we move on to the endless scrolling and the next pages of going and going.
Yeah. Well, I think we're so accustomed to doing what is expected, right? And so we see, I think, all of this feedback from social media that informs us of how we maybe should live, or how we think we should be living. And it makes it really hard to then go about your day and feel confident and good about your choices if they're not aligned with everything that you're seeing online. So I think as we talk through this discussion, I think you're going to touch on some of these points, Celia. This is where it becomes really important to get intentional about your relationship with social media.
Yeah.
You know,
I love the word expectation, because in my space of obesity medicine and trying to lose weight, the expectations around what that means, I think social media can be very harmful in that aspect, right? Because I think people only show positives, right? Most people only post, right? Oh my gosh, I've lost all this weight and I'm like now a whole new person and feeling so amazing. And, you know, no one really is like, oh, my weight journey's been really slow, right? It's just less frequent that people, if not rare, that people post that kind of stuff. And it was really interesting. They did a study looking at all the posted weight loss percentages from the commercial programs. So like Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig and all these places, and what they said was posted and what was advertised. And then they actually compared that to randomized control trials where people were actually being studied and looked at in a more scientific way. And obviously they were drastically different. And so how that can be hard to be, you know, for patients, is that they just have these expectations that are just not realistic. And I don't want to say they're made up, but they're definitely on the fringe of what is actually biochemically possible.
Right. Well, and it sets people up for failure then too, because they have that expectation that that's going to be what their result is like. And when they don't see that in themselves, it's so disappointing. It's so disappointing. And then it just spirals.
Yep.
Yeah. And I know Missy and Sam, we've worked a lot with some of our language around our weight program, because it can be hard to find this place where, you know, you want to reach people with where they're at, right? If people are looking for weight loss and being excited about losing weight and getting healthier, but then also trying to get everyone to remember that, you know, that
we love you just the way you are.
Yeah.
You're good just the way you are.
If you want to be healthy, you know, and just feel a little bit happier, and maybe you don't lose a pound, like maybe that's okay too, right? And finding that space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can talk about that a lot when it comes to especially the messaging around what we do for True. It's weird for us. Like I said before, I'm sorry about the little problem at the beginning with going live on Facebook. For some reason, it got deleted and we had to add it. But we're used to being behind the scenes, so this is different for us. But we're very thoughtful about everything that we do, especially when it comes to social media marketing for all of our clients, not just True, but especially True, because it is, you know, women's health is a passion for us. And it's important to us that we put out the right kind of messaging, that people feel, you know, that it's inclusive, and that we're, you know, not putting these idealized images out there. We're even thoughtful about the stock images that we use for graphics and things like that. You know, it's something that I think the industry in general, marketing, in my opinion, needs to be held more accountable for. We can't control influencers and people who are independents doing things out there and, you know, using filters on every photo they post. But I think in the industry in general, I think that, you know, we need to be held more, you know, accountable for what we post.
Yeah, I think I think it's really interesting. And do you guys struggle a little bit with finding that balance with trying to sell and trying to give realistic expectations for health? Because I know you deal a lot with clients in the healthcare space.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. You know, there's some, we have to make sure that we have a values match with the client first, because sometimes clients that are selling a specific kind of healthcare, you know, want imagery to look a certain way. And we know, like in our industry from studies, that when women see images of women that are actually their exact age. They think that that woman is actually 10 years older than they are. That's just a study. So like in some, healthcare settings, we've been asked to use images of younger women, even though they were targeting older women. And it's just, it's tough.
Yeah, it's
really tough.
it's a fine line of trying to be authentic, because I feel like I'm 25, so like my age range, like we're very much like, I grew up with social media and have kind of seen it evolve over the years. And I think my age range is really responding more to authenticity and like really hearing the true stories behind things. So back when I did weight journey and stuff, it was really important to me as a patient to be like, no, like this is the reality. I'm like struggling with this. I'm still having cravings, but I'm learning so much. And like truly, like weight is a journey, and body image is a journey, and learning how to like question everything that you see and curating like your social media feed to things that feel authentic to you and feel purposeful and lightening you up. Like we talk a lot about the algorithm in marketing, of like the things you interact with, you're just going to see more of. So I think really curating your feed and spending the time interacting with the kind of material you want to see is super important when you're looking at your social media feeds.
Yeah. And in talking with my patients, I mean, it continues to shock me how a lot of their healthcare decisions are a bit dictated by what they've seen on social media. It's funny because I became a doctor in the age of the internet. And so my entire career, I've had people bring in WebMD information from the internet, right, and ask me questions. And I've had people say, well, don't you just hate that someone brings in stuff? I'm like, actually, no, I love it, right? I will say it has been a bit tricky to have people bring in social media posts, because at least from a website, I can kind of verify or understand what's happening. I mean, personal experience based off of social media accounts and the logarithms that people have gotten down, right? That's a little bit of a harder path to sort of question and understand. So it's really interesting how that patient experience has evolved, even just in conversation with a doctor or a life coach, and kind of understanding what the next steps are and how, like, just trying to understand the patient from their perspective, right, of where they're coming from, and bringing that as part of the conversation. Because I don't know, Marisa, I mean, there's sometimes it feels as though like you're like, what? Like, how can you possibly think this? But the reality is that they do and they want to. And so it's just trying to find that balance of meeting them with where they're at and kind of understanding, where to go next.
Yeah. And I think what you're essentially saying is there's just so much noise on social media. There's just this endless, everyone has an opinion about everything. There's one person who is going to be talking about, almond flour is like the way to go. Another person's going to be slamming people who use almond flour, right? It's like,
yes. Food religious noise is intense. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. There's so much. And I think it's reflective of everything in life, that our lives have just become so noisy. So noisy.
I love that. What a great
and it really stifles our inner voice, right? And this is a lot of the work that I do with my clients that I think is relevant to social media. Is we've got to get back to who we are and what we want to create in our lives. What do we truly want in our lives? And we have to ask ourselves, what am I committed to? What am I really committed to in my life? Because if I'm committed to peace, and I'm committed to self-love, and I'm committed to building, my self-image within myself, and detaching from all of these things, right? Like putting my worth outside of myself and my body or my job or what have you, then you have to be very careful with how much time you spend on social media and what it is that you're consuming, because it does impact your thoughts, right? And I know, Celia, you and I talked about this the other day, but we have 60,000 thoughts a day. 95% of them are the same, and they're subconscious. So if you are just scrolling when you wake up and scrolling before bed, you're seeing the same stuff every day. You're activating the same thoughts, and it's very hard to get yourself out of a rut when you do that.
Yeah.
So you've either got to, you've got to cut down the time. You need to replace your morning scroll with a gratitude practice where you make a list of everything you're grateful for and have a cup of coffee. Whatever it might be, either cut down on your time or cut out your audience. So make sure that the things that you are paying attention to are uplifting, they're inspiring, they're leaving you in a place where you're feeling good, not in a place where you're starting your day off just feeling, crappy already before you've even put your clothes on for the day and ready to go about your work. So
yeah.
I always tell, so part of what we call seeds is part of our practice, are the 7 essential elements of daily success. One of them is gratitude thinking. And there is a reason for why we want people to do that. And I always comment to people, I'm like, it's not involving your phone, right? You can't scroll through the things that you think you're grateful for. And I think that that's really important. I mean, I think there's sometimes that you can feel connected, right? I have, a lot of weight patients in particular. Again, that's just sort of my field, but I definitely know even as well as in the menopause space that women in particular can hear stories, and particularly for menopause, I think for the first time, there's a good deal of buzz surrounding, these symptoms are real, you're not going crazy, there's treatment options, right? And that can feel really good to hear those comments and sort of to see. And I think that there's a lot of humor on social media surrounding menopause, which I think makes it a little more, I don't know, just kind of easier bite to swallow, so to speak, right? When there's humor sort of involved. And I love that kind of stuff. And I think that that is a place where women do feel kind of connected.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
I know we try to post some funny stuff about.
We do. Yeah, we do. We had during menopause month in October, we had a ball with social media that month. If anybody wants to scroll back and look at your Instagram feed, we had a lot of fun with
and
menopause.
Wendy just asked, are there any body positive accounts that you follow? Honestly, Wendy, there's none that I particularly follow. But I think a lot of it depends on how you feel, right? And if you feel connected to someone's message about their body and other sort of health choices, I would sort of bounce that back to you. I don't know. Do you guys have any accounts that you really love?
I follow a couple body positive, influencer kind of things. I can add the ats into the comments and stuff, but one of them is Jessamine Stanley on Instagram, and she's a woman of color, talks a lot about being a curvy woman and what that means, and has a fitness line and stuff like that. I love her. I also follow a lot of just people who are therapists or inspirational quote kind of people, like Nedra Tawwab and people like that. And her words just resonate really well. I try to get away from being so picture focused, I want to see people talking and quotes and that kind of stuff resonates more with me than necessarily body image, right, because I'm I want to feel good. I don't necessarily always feel super focused about how I look. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I loved how you said that, Sam, before about curating your own feed. That's something that I think people forget, is that there are tools and ways that you can still stay connected with people on platforms, but unfollow them so that their posts don't show up in your feed. So if there's somebody that posts stuff that just makes you feel terrible all the time, you can actually select to unfollow them, but not unconnect or unfriend them, I guess. I don't know. Is that the right terminology?
Yep. Yeah.
But you can curate your feed, and you can set your feed, especially on Instagram. There's a new feature on there where you can create a favorites feed. So if there's people that you want to make sure that you don't miss what they post, because it does make you feel good. It is something that's inspirational, and you can always set your feed to, a favorites feed that way as well.
And interacting with ads you don't like if you get weight loss ads all the time for, you know, like some service or company that you don't like, you can always click the button and say, don't show me this again, kind of thing, you know? So I think there's like questioning yourself, like how we talked about in the beginning of like when you're feeling triggered and like that kind of stuff, kind of like diving into it a little bit and then making the decision to protect yourself, I think is super important.
So Missy, Sam, just because you work in this space and this is where you live, do you guys feel like social media influences some of your health choices? Or do you ever look there for health information?
I do, for sure. At least for me. I mean, I pay attention a lot because of the work that we do in the health space too. But for me personally, you know, I'm a patient at True. You know, I had cancer, so I'm in menopause because of that. And so I look at a lot of other, you know, like healthcare influencers and things. And I do look for that authenticity. And I do look for like medically sound advice type things. Like I'm skeptical, you know, so I like watch for consistency a lot, like in the feeds of people that I follow, you know, especially people who kind of create a personal brand. I'm a little more skeptical of than like a business. Like I feel like there's something about like people trying to create a personal brand around health that always kind of makes me go, So
yeah, I follow like a lot of Instagram accounts and doctors like on Instagram and stuff, also because of the field, but just because I have a genuine interest, especially in women's health. Like all of my friends, whenever we get together, like there's always like a gamut that we run through of like what's new, what's going on health wise. Like we're all pretty health conscious to talk about like a lot of things we've asked our doctors about. We like share information and stuff. So I think interacting with those kind of accounts like on Facebook, and when I have questions and stuff, like I'll DM people, you know, so I interact with them a lot on TikTok and like Instagram.
Yeah, I do.
I don't let it run my medical decisions, but I do consider it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I feel that. I do.
Marisa, how about you? Are you a Instagrammer by socialization?
You know, I have a very different, I've come to a very different place with social media. I don't spend a lot of time on social media, unless my philosophy is like get in, make impact and leave. So you know, being a coach, my goal is to inspire others, to help them understand what it is that I do so they can know a little bit about me, whether or not we're a fit. I have to just get out because quite honestly, it's tough for me. You know, it's tough for me to, the comparisons, you know, that really, and there's, like I said, there's so much. It's hard to know what to trust. Right. So when it comes to health, when it comes to wellness, I will usually seek that information from my local network, from people I know who have worked with other people that they know and trust, to get that sound advice from a professional, whatever it might be, whether it's, you know, for therapy or whether it's for, you know, a dietitian or hormonal stuff. Any of those questions I'm always going to bring to somebody that's been recommended to me. So that's, it's different for me. I think because it's me and it's my brand and I'm a personal brand, I have to be on social media all the time.
Yeah.
And I've had my own things that I've had to overcome with being seen, right? Being seen and potentially being judged.
Yeah.
And when I first started having professional photos taken for content and posting those often, you know, I was a lot thinner than I am now. And I was like, I have to be, you know, I would do all the things to prepare for that photo shoot ahead of time. And I was so nervous about how that was going to look and sharing that with the world and being seen in that way and scrutinized. And then I've done a lot of work on that to where now, you know, I just had to do another one yesterday for May and beyond. And I was just like, yep, we're here. I'm comfortable, whatever. I brought my own stuff. And it was a completely different experience because that's been my own journey with it. But I think people actually, connect with you. They feel when you're showing up authentically, when you're showing up insecurely. And I think that that's where you can really, when you show up authentically and you connect with others on your vulnerabilities, you can have a really good conversation and you can really forge a good friendship, a good relationship. And even just, I've had some DM messages with people that have just been really inspiring lately and never, they don't necessarily go anywhere, but it doesn't always have to be about going somewhere, right? It can just be a place for us to connect.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think with the original, we hope, right, that the original desire of social media was supposed to be was to connect and not necessarily to drive home these kind of unrealistic expectations of relationships and parenting and motherhood and weight and all those other things that are sort of out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. I think I think it's really interesting the role that it plays in many different aspects, because I think although patients, I don't say bring this to conversation, we have a lot more to do with weight and body image and understanding sort of where they're at in terms of other health goals. But I think even just how they feel, and I wouldn't say directly women say, I'm depressed because I'm seeing everyone on Instagram look so happy, right? I don't think that's a direct comment that people say, but I do hear all the time, like, I feel like I'm missing something, right? Is there something more to this? Like, there should be more to being a mother, or there should be more to running a business, like, all these other aspects. And I feel like that's always time to pause and think about kind of your own use in this space and what that looks like. And I love how Marisa, like, kind of where the judgment's coming from and like kind of question internally.
Yeah. Like, what void are you filling with that time and energy?
Yeah.
If you're turning to social media, even if it's just because you're bored, there's something else. There's always something deeper that we're not always in touch with. So it's what purpose is social media serving for you in your life?
Yeah. It's
really getting in touch with that.
Yeah, I love that comment about being bored, right? Because I talk to my patients a lot about contentment, feeling content, and how this plays out in my space, right? Is a lot of women and people. I mean, this is not just women, but since we mostly see women, people fill that void of discontentment with food and alcohol a lot, right? It used to be a lot more nicotine, not so much anymore in our patient space, but right, overeating, what I call like moms being bingy, right? Where they're they're in the pantry, their hands are in the cookie jar, that kind of stuff. And so the more you sit with this feeling of discontentment and you're filling it with a quick dopamine hitter, which is what social media is, what cookies are, what that third glass of wine is, right? The harder it is then to move away from all of it. So if you're someone, you're like, I, for some reason, cannot not have a drink every day. I know that that's not good for me. I can't stop having that processed food, and I can't stop going through the drive-through, or, I eat healthy all day, but then the kids go to bed and I'm snacking all night, right? That is all the same brain thread that's happening that drives still your social media use. And it almost is an opportunity to be like, I'm bored at work for 15 minutes. Gratitude thinking, deep breathing, do not pick up the social media at that point, because down later in the afternoon, that's when your brain's going to again ask for another quick fix. Right. And that's when the fill in the gap then will be snacks, maybe some more alcohol, right? And all those things in general are just not great for us, as we know. Again, not never, but just, every day.
Do you feel like that's like addictive behavior, Dr. Egan? I mean, like,
yes, this is on the grandiose scale, some of it is a bit, right? So, I mean, the definition of addiction is doing something even though we know it's harmful. It's gotten a little tricky to understand because there's chemical addiction, such as, a major drug like alcohol. But then we also have these other addictions like gambling, right? It's not really a chemical addiction, but like people gamble to the point where they lose everything. And so where does social media fall in that place? And so it's one of those things where if you feel like as though it's harming you, you feel terrible after you do it. Maybe you're ignoring your kids. Maybe you didn't get a job, a task done at work that you really needed to do, right? That's harmful. And if you can't do it, then it's time to pull back.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it is just classic codependency, just that classic codependent behavior that, we've become it's become so difficult in this day and age to just be, just be. Like when I was a kid, we'd go out, if you were bored, you'd go out and figure something out outside with your friends, or you would, you would tinker around with something at home, it was calm, screen-free activity. But now we're just so bombarded that we don't even know how to be anymore. We just, it's like, I need this constant connection to know what's going on all the time, everywhere around me. It's very, very hard, I think, for us to break because it's become so ingrained.
Yeah.
Like Celia said, in our mental activity. It's like, actually we've now wired it into our daily habits. And it's really hard to break.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and it's like that constant stimulation of like, I need to be doing something all the time. So I'm just going to do this while I'm also doing this, while I'm also doing this. So it just like, it becomes like a toxic, like multitasking kind of loop that you go around. And it's just like learning how to be calm and like meditate and having those like quiet moments where you don't do anything, like really makes you appreciate when you have that more.
Sam and Missy, how do you guys, I mean, this is your job, this is your work, your livelihood. How do you guys take breaks from this? Do you purposely make space or do you feel like it naturally happens?
Well, I'll say, at least for me, I spend very little time on social media at all during the workday because I'm busy. I'm doing so much other stuff. I get on for a few minutes to check accounts, just for client purposes. And I make sure that I only go through, the admin side of things so that I don't
oh boy, what did Dr. Egan post today?
Yeah. Let's see if I have to fix something she posted. But no, I spend just like work time, client accounts and looking at that kind of stuff on social. And then in the evening, I usually do spend some time on social. And then at a certain point, it's like, okay, I made it through like what I needed to see after 25, 30 minutes, and then I'm done. And I put on my do not disturb on my phone after a certain time now in the evening, just because I just don't want to see those alerts or notifications coming up on my phone. And I don't turn that part of it off until I get up in the morning. Do you have a visitor, Dr.?
I have a visitor. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We love.
That's what I bring something from my own accounts. All of the eggs that are red.
Yeah.
Are fish eggs.
Thank goodness.
I'm obsessed with him.
Finding Nemo, he didn't have Nemo.
I love that. It's just like what other shows that we've done with Dr. Bittner has had her cat jump up on them.
I'm sorry. I'm one parent down today for another school activity.
No, you're perfect.
But I'm sure it can be very difficult when it's your life, right? Like when it's your job, right? And,
I have had periods of time, especially like when our team was smaller and I had a lot more of that hands-on responsibility with clients, because now I just only have a couple of clients that I'm directly responsible for. I did have I was over-messaged, over-stimulated, too much incoming all the time information. And so it's definitely gotten better because the load of the responsibility of checking those platforms is spread out now among other people in the agency. It's not just me and two other people. So that makes a big difference. And I think Sam can speak to that too, like as far as like for her, what that's like. I mean, how do you use social media personally?
Yeah. I mean, I don't go on like my personal Facebook or anything like that, or Instagram like during the workday at all. I just am checking client accounts and stuff, and I have notifications set to like where I don't get notified of likes and that kind of stuff. It's only comments and inbox messages.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't get like inundated with notifications all day because I just don't need that like in my feed. Only the important stuff. Let me know what's going on kind of thing. Otherwise you just get a little overstimulated. But in the evenings, I really don't go on like my personal Facebook or Instagram that much either, unless it's to check like my messages. People will send me memes and that kind of stuff. the time that I spend a lot on social media is TikTok because it's so easy to just keep scrolling.
Yeah.
And I just love, like, that brings me joy. So I'll spend like maybe like, I don't know, like 30, 45 minutes on TikTok, like at night, like
Yeah,
after I had dinner.
What's the joyful part about it, Sam?
So the algorithm knows
Sam
me
has
so
Sam
well.
has curated her feed, Dr.
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
TikTok.
The algorithm knows me so well. So like I only see like funny videos of like little kids or dogs or animals.
Dancing puppies.
Yes, that's my jam. I'm also on like dermatology TikTok, so like the pimple popping videos everybody hates.
Oh no.
The love of my life. So I mean, it's just like that kind of stuff where I get to like zone out a little bit. Also, I'm super engaged politically and stuff, so I get a lot of like news kind of stuff from TikTok, like quick, like 5-minute like videos on like what happened in the day. And I really just, I don't use it for like anything super serious. I just use podcasts and like that kind of stuff to get most of my news. I don't even really watch TV. So, and then I read in the evening. So I'm off my phone.
You know, if I were in medical school and someone would have told me, no, just go to dermatology and just film popping zits, people would love it. I've been like,
yes.
You know?
I know. I always joke with Missy. I said I missed my calling going into marketing. I should have been a dermatologist. I love those videos.
All right. So we've been talking for a little bit. Let's do our take-home tips for today.
Okay, I'll put those up.
All right. Number 1 take-home tip: connect and don't compare. Oh, that's hard, isn't it? Oh man, the mothering, the looks, the vacations, the bags, all of it. I feel like it's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is hard.
I think if you're in that space where you're feeling like the guilt and the coulda, woulda, shouldas, that's a time maybe to not watch that account or take a break.
Yep.
Okay. Number 2, follow people that bring you joy, right? I'm sure there are some accounts you can find, whether it's pimples or doggies,
puppies,
golden doodles,
right? Or like, I don't know, sweet houseplants. I don't know. There's a lot of things that are out there. Things that bring you a little spark of joy. I think that's a great idea. Number 3, live in the moment, not just capturing it. So this is on the opposite end, right? So, I mean, how many times people go on vacation or they're at a meal or at a concert or at the Grand Canyon and they're just like, can't stop snapping.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, being like, sit there in the moment and soak every ounce of it up. And I include that as part as food, right? Like, I'm like, if you're going to eat a chocolate brownie sundae, then eat that sundae. Nothing else, no cameras. Enjoy it, hold it, love it, right? And everything that's there. And really, like, between, if you're in the Grand Canyon, at the beach, right? The wind on your face, the smell of the seawater, all of it, looking at the waves, hearing the birds, all of it is so important to contentment and making us feel real, like real humans.
Be present, yes, and where you are. Yep.
And Wendy said she's only following animals from now on.
Okay, yeah, we like it, Wendy.
I will
agree.
I'll add something to that too. Something that I do now when I'm really in the moment, if I want to remember something, is I'll actually I'll either just like write it down later in my journal or I'll write a note in my phone when I have time. So it's just like you have it there to remember and you kind of solidify it, but you don't have to necessarily share it all with the world.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I think about this so much, like when I was, when you have your little babies, right? Like your babies are only babies, like they're only 1 week for a week. They're only 2 weeks for a week, right? They just go so quickly, and how much, like, I don't know, sometimes it's just like you're snapping photos, but it never actually comes. Oh, sorry, buddy. I'm almost done, lovey. Okay.
Okay, Mommy.
Okay.
Aw.
Mommy.
Okay.
I'm ready to go.
Okay, I think that's so great. I'll be out in just a second, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Mom,
Here, you want to
can
sit
I
here?
keep watching?
Yeah, keep watching.
All the little kids shows were because the one with I I'm ready to go.
Okay, goodbye. Thank you. Sorry.
I love him.
Thank you. All right, number 4. So you catch okay, limit use first thing in the morning. I actually agree with this, right? I think popping our eyeballs open and popping our screen up probably isn't the healthiest for the most thing. Probably the first thing we should do in the morning is get a big glass of water, to be honest. From everything medically, it's probably the best thing to do, right?
Yes.
And giving your brain just a second to wake up, understanding where it's at in this space, kind of feeling where you're at in the morning, feeling your body. And that can just, I think, get a bit deterred with social media first thing in the morning.
I heard a quote from Jay Shetty. He said, you wouldn't let hundreds of people into your bedroom like first thing in the morning, but you basically are. When you just open up your phone, you're just allowing all of their input and energy into your bedroom. I thought that was a great analogy.
So true.
That being said, I'll probably never do that then.
Yeah. I think I just have like this fear of missing something that like keeps me checking things, like I'm just scared I'm gonna miss something. And every time I catch myself doing that, I'm like, oh, what am I gonna miss? It's fine.
I know, I was just gonna say, what do you miss?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, number 5, look elsewhere for contentment, right? You're not going to find it in social media. You may find, a new piece of used furniture or a new paint idea or something like that, but you're probably not going to find contentment. And so looking for a connection and look, in other places, whether it's creativity, whether it's other folks, whether it's in yourself and understanding what that means, looking other places. All right, 5 questions to ask yourself, right? Your primary care doctor probably doesn't think too much about it. What is your relationship with social media? Do you have a good relationship, right? Do you feel like you got a good balance? Or is it something that you're kind of developing a codependency on? You're relying on it when you're bored, when you're sad, right? When you're looking for a little pick-me-up. Kind of reflect a little bit about what your relationship is with social media. Number 2, how do you feel after viewing social media? If you're getting, to be frank, pissed off, if you feel guilty, if you feel anxious, if you feel sad, right? Maybe that's a time to take a break or at least look at other things. Sam, I don't know how you do with the news. That'd be tough. That'd be tough one.
Yeah, I know. I feel like a duty to know everything all the time. So I just need to give myself some slack.
All right. Number 3, is it time for a break? That can be even, honestly, you can even just say like how we talk about other addiction patterns, whether it's alcohol, right? Like, I'm just going to not do it for a week. Just see what happens, right? How am I going to feel? What am I going to do? And if it's really tough, that means you probably should take a longer break, right? Really look into what that looks like.
Yep, that's good.
Number 4, am I connecting with others? Am I enjoying the moment, right? So your kids would love to connect with you. For heaven's sakes, our partners desperately want to connect with us. Maybe there's other people in our lives that need connection. And I think it's much more important to do some of those things than maybe, keep diving deeper into the social media sinkhole. And it can be helpful to reflect. I don't know, Marisa, what do you think? How do you counsel patients on connecting with others?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the one thing I would add to all of this. These are great questions. Is really to whether you do it through journaling or whether you just introspect, is to really understand, what is my relationship with social media showing me about myself? What is my reaction to social media showing me about myself? Because that's where you can take a situation that is maybe not always positive and make it a positive. You can find the silver lining in it, which is like, okay, I've got this, I got to heal this thing. I got to bring my self-talk into alignment, or, I've got to really work on my wound from my relationship with my mom, or like, I need better boundaries, whatever it may be. Use it as an opportunity for good, in your life, and find a way to leverage that for your personal growth, I think is really, the biggest takeaway that I would add to all of this.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love the positivity.
Yeah, I like that too.
All right. Number 5, am I putting off seeing a therapist or physician to discuss my issues, right? If you're now on like the many of days of weight loss or, mood disorders or feeling depressed or a lot of other things, maybe it's time to seek professional help, right? I definitely know, as always, we're here at True Women's Health to talk about all things with women, menopause, weight loss, sexual health. There's really no question that you can bring to our office that we wouldn't scoff at or be really excited to talk to you about. But please do seek out professional advice from either a therapist, a spiritual coach, a physician, into understanding and just working out some of these issues that maybe you're trying to find an answer for.
Yeah, I think that that's a really important one, because oftentimes people will see something and they'll go, oh yeah, that's me, right? And they'll almost reinforce this identity for themselves. And that can be really damaging. And so, you know, they see this little piece and it's like, oh, I must be a covert narcissist, or, you know, whatever. They come up with all these labels for themselves. And that just, again, perpetuates your own negative stories about yourself and your own negative identity.
Yeah. It's funny that you probably see that a lot in your space. I feel like I see a lot more of like dietary recommendations, and I will, you know, when I make dietary recommendations for people, I do sort of do it off of some critical thinking, you know, labs and other insight and experience that I've had. And so it can be funny when I'm like recommending some dietary changes or restrictions around food or whatever we're talking about. There is some thought to it that is just very difficult to pull from another person's account.
I've seen that with I think is it PCOS? Is that? I know some people who have had issues with that, or they're like, oh, I have this, and there's like different types, and I read about these different types online. I have one friend who, you know, is like, oh, I read about these different types, I'm sure this is me, and, you know, this is why I can't lose weight. It's like, well, go and speak to somebody about that, right? Like, do the testing. It's a great theory. So take the theory from social media and then go and, you know, seek and prove.
And some of this isn't patients' faults, you know, because for so long, and I think this is one of the major flaws with the current medical system, is that patient education is actually faster than medical education. So unless you're kind of, Dr. Bittner and I are very curious physicians, and we've sought out other plans, right? We've learned about menopause, and I've learned about obesity and weight loss medications, and we both are consciously or always seeking out new answers for different things for women to answer women's questions. But that's not the case for, you know, all physicians. And so sometimes patients will bring questions. The doctor's like, I don't know. And so then they're going to just go to wherever they, you know, wherever they're going to find an answer, right? And so a lot of that is social media. And so, you know, obviously any woman who has a question, please, you know, always bring their questions to, you know, obviously our office. We're always excited to talk to any woman about any medical problem that they have. All right. So such an interesting conversation today.
Yeah. This is great.
Yes.
And so if anyone, you know, out there listening is in the state of Michigan or Illinois, or actually Alabama and Wisconsin now, which is really exciting, that we would be happy to have a phone call conversation with you, or an in-person visit to talk about weight or menopause or a variety of different things. If anyone's interested in talking to Marisa, they can check her out at her website or follow her on Instagram. And Missy and Sam, if anyone wants more information about what they do, check them out at leverage.com.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Great conversation. Good night, everyone. Enjoy everyone's St. Patrick's Day in the spring.
Yes. Bring on the warmth.
My interruptions.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.